detail, or they had not enough detail, which is the last point I want to make about it. If you decide that what you're going to do with your little animation invention, that for some reason you're going to incorporate not a lot of design, so you're only going to have like this one slit, maybe this one slit, and you only have like 1, 2, 3, 4 designs. The same thing holds true. Now, if you only have 4 images on there, it's not going to work either, because there's not enough. There's not enough variance in the design for it to actually, for the invention to work. You know, basically what we'll see is like, if this face just has a smile, all of them will look like they just have a smile. They don't just look like that. You know, the thing you want to do, or the thing you want to keep in mind, is that it needs to have like at least 8 slits on it, and then it'll work. If you have 8 slits on it, it'll work. It'll work. If it's a simple design, it'll work. And again, you're not going to be able to notice it until you hold it up to the mirror and look through the slit. Okay? So, because a lot of people come back and they're like, "Mine doesn't work. I don't know. I did everything from the explanation. It just doesn't work." And then I'll go look at it, you know, you can look at it against any reflection. You'll be like, "Yeah, it works." Well, how do you know? Well, you gotta see it through. This has to reflect off of something for you to see it. But anyway, I wanted us to actually like do that, and we'll do another one. The other one will be even simpler than that. Okay. Today we're going to watch like a PowerPoint, so I'm not going to write a whole lot of notes on the board. Just want to point out a couple of moments in time where animation made its presence. 1925, the film The Lost World, a live-action film with Willis O'Brien's 3D stop motion of a prehistoric dinosaur actually hit the big screen. You got to remember, when animation first started, especially in America, when it got to America, what happened was that silent pictures were in. Black and white silent pictures were in. There was you went to the drive-in and you saw like you went to the theater and you saw a movie, a feature film, which really wasn't long. I think the feature film was like maybe 25 minutes, 30 minutes. You saw that. And then you saw what they call a newsreel, which was like a broadcast for the news, because of course there was no television, so the newsreel was this broadcast that was on film, and it told you what was going on, what was the current thing that was going on. And then in between the feature film and the newsreel, during the intermission, was an animation. Now, in the early days of film, the filmmakers, the people who did live-action film, they didn't consider animation part of the film world. They weren't part of it. Animation wasn't part of that medium. Animation, to a lot of filmmakers who were just starting out, they thought animation was a novelty, and that it would come and then eventually it would just disappear. You know, like, yeah, there's just no way. I mean, it's amusing, but nobody's gonna actually like latch on to it because it's really nothing. I mean, they're not even real, you know, and that's their main point behind it, behind the statements were that they weren't real, you know, and they're like, the American audience is not going to like it because they're not real. But as time went on, animation had its ups and downs, but it managed to actually like survive over the period of time, and make it until present day. 1926, there was a shadow puppet animation done in Germany. It was The Adventures of Prince Ahmed. Yeah. Also in 1926, Kodak in Rochester, New York, produces the first 16mm film. Very first one. Years ago, movies were made not only with celluloid, but they also incorporated a chemical agent, nitrate, which was very close to nitroglycerin, which is the reasoning why we don't have like a lot of the early films. They actually just burned up in the film cans. I mean, that's also the reason why we don't have TV shows. Like the very first TV shows, they're gone. You know, I mean, there was no way to actually like stabilize these elements to the point where they could actually reproduce them. Hold on. Okay. There was no way they could actually stabilize this this type of film in the early days, so there was a big loss. Now, fortunately, some of the heirs, like the heir of the heir to Winsor McCay, his family, they were fortunate enough to actually like save their grandfather's early work, and so we actually can actually view it today. So we're gonna watch some of the Winsor McCay, the Gertie Dinosaur. We're gonna watch some of that. Because there was a lot of other films that actually, animated films that came around during that time period, but unfortunately, like I say, they just didn't, they weren't fortunate enough to actually like be preserved so that we can see them now, which is an unfortunate thing. In 1927, Disney started the popular Oswald the Rabbit series. Now, for those of you who are unaware of who Oswald the Rabbit is, Oswald the Rabbit is actually Walt Disney's cartoon. That was the cartoon that Walt Disney created. He didn't create Mickey Mouse. Ub Iwerks, an animator who worked for Disney, created Mickey Mouse. Disney created Oswald the Rabbit, and if you look him up now on the internet, Oswald the Rabbit actually, they're still trying to figure out if they can bring him back. I was told in the video game Kingdom Hearts, they did bring Oswald into one of the games. He's like
they're still working on that.
They haven't brought him in yet because he's supposed to be like the evil Mickey, you know.
I've heard something about some new Mickey Mouse game.
Yeah.
Or
Oswald is
Big Mickey.
Yeah. But the thing about Disney's character Oswald is that Walt Disney, when he first started out, he didn't just start off and have the Disney Studios. Walt Disney worked for a studio. He worked as a draftsman. He was a newspaper guy for a long time. He went to this studio, Winkler Studios, where this woman, Margaret Winkler, was the producer there. And what they did was a really clever production. They called the series the Alice cartoons. They had a little girl, right, a human, a real person, and she would go on these adventures, right? She would go on these. She would go on these adventures, and she would always, whenever she got in trouble, it was kind of like a Felix the Cat thing. Oswald the Rabbit would come to her aid. He was like the one who actually would save her. You know, if she was shipwrecked, Oswald would come and he would figure out a way to build a boat and get him off of a little island or something. You know, if there was a situation where I think there's a bullfight and the bull actually comes out of the arena and Oswald comes to save the day. So they were doing some pretty good stuff. Now, early on in the early days of silent film, geez, all the way into like, I think it was 1910 or 1906 or something like that, they had figured out that if you marry two film strips together, you could have like what they call an optical illusion. And nowadays they call it optical printing, is what they call it. Actually, it's what we call compositing in After Effects.